Good morning. Today is the 7th day of Emor, the 15th of May. And we're looking at the fourth reading of Parshat Emor. As promised from the fourth reading, we are dealing with the festivals, beginning with the Sabbath, the beginning of our reading, which is therefore considered the festival. It's very important to know this. Even though the Sabbath is separate, it's something entirely different. But because it appears here in verse 4 as part, not in verse 4, in verse 3, right after the introduction that says, these are the designated holy occasions or holy days on which you will read from the Torah. Mikrei Kodesh, or sometimes it's called days in which we call upon holiness, because a festival, as opposed to Torah, is not automatically holy. It becomes sacred. It receives its sanctity from our work. So that's why on festivals we say, Mekadesh Yisrael v'azmanim, that God sanctifies Israel, and Israel sanctify the times, meaning the festivals. But Shabbat, the Sabbath, is completely different. There's a concept called in the Talmud, Shabbat Mikdasha V'Kaima. The Sabbath was set up by God on the seventh day of creation, and therefore its holiness, its sacredness, is built in. Whenever it is Saturday, there is holiness. We don't have to do anything to bring that holiness. So that's one of the explanations of why the festivals are called Mikrei Kodesh, days in which we call upon the holiness. Or, alternatively, it also means days in which we read in the Torah. In any case, we're not going to look at the Sabbath. After that, we start from, it goes in order of the month, so it starts from Passover in verse 5. Let me just read it for you. As you know, in the afternoon between noon and sunset of the 14th day of Nisan, the first month, you must offer up the Passover, the Paschal sacrifice to God. And then it continues on. In verse 9, we get to the Omer offering. What is the Omer offering? That is the first barley offering that's brought from the fields. Wheat has not yet matured enough to be cut and turned into flour, but the barley, which animals eat, is already mature enough. So the first barley is cut from the field, reaped from the harvest, and we bring a special sacrifice of two loaves of this barley bread. And then in verse 15, we hear about the mitzvah that we are currently in, the mitzvah of counting the Omer. The verse says, starting on the day after the day of rest, referring here, now he translated here as the day of rest, but really it says, start counting after the Sabbath. And this became a very big point of contention in the Second Temple period between those who had the oral tradition and knew how to understand this verse and those who didn't. Those who didn't were called tzdukim, baitusim. There are all kinds of cults in the Jewish people that didn't know the oral tradition. So they said, really what this means is that after Passover, you wait till the next Sabbath, and then on the first day after, meaning on Sunday, you start counting the Omer. And the counting the Omer is 49 days, so it will always be 49 days that are 7 full weeks. But the oral tradition explains that this Sabbath is not referring to the day of Sabbath. It's not talking about Saturday. It's talking about, as he translated it here, the day of rest, referring to the 15th day of Nisan, the first day of Passover. And so on the 16th day of Passover, regardless of what day of the week it is, we start counting the Omer. And then we count for 49 days, and the 50th day after that is Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, as it's called in English. And during it, we commemorate the giving of the Torah, but really it's the 50th day after Passover. Now, this remained a point of contention, and wasn't easy to solve this. Eventually, time takes does its thing, and nobody here today, nobody alive today, would think even of starting to count the Omer on the Sunday after Passover. Everybody knows that you start the day right after, and that the Sabbath here is referring to the 15th day of Nisan, the first day of Passover. Still, we have to ask, why is it that the Torah uses this language, which could be misinterpreted, easily misinterpreted, as referring to the Sabbath? So, Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev gives us a modern interpretation of the answer to this question, and he says like this: only at the Exodus from Egypt was it that the creation of the world was completed, and the purpose of creation revealed, because then the love of God for Israel was revealed. So he gives us a very important principle. He says, it's true that the world was created 5,784 years ago, but the purpose of creation was only finished when the nation of Israel was created. Even though Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were certainly God's servants, and their offspring were connected, still the Jewish people did not become a nation. There was no nation of Israel, a people of Israel, until they came out of Egypt. So, he says like this is why Passover is called a Sabbath. Just as the Sabbath, the seventh day of creation, marks the completion of the physical aspect of creation, right? The first Saturday, the first Shabbat, after the 6 days of creation, marks the completion of the physical aspect of creation. So the first day of Passover, when the Jewish people left Egypt and became a nation, represents the conceptual completion of creation. And therefore, that day, the first day of Passover, is referred here as a Sabbath. And it's not referred to as Pesach, just Pesach. It's not the first day after Pesach. It's the first day after Sabbath because it's completing the purpose of creation. Now, there's something more that he says. And this is a well-known phenomenon. I don't think that he was the first one to point this out, but listen to the way he explains things and see how far this can be taken. It's very interesting. There's a very interesting phenomenon that if you take the letters Aleph through Vav, the first 6 letters of the alphabet, and you do a transformation called Adbash. Adbash just means that Aleph transforms into Taf. The first letter transforms into the last letter. The Bet, the second letter, transforms into Shin, which is the second to last letter. The Gimel becomes Reish. The Gimel is the third letter, Reish is the third to last letter, and so on. Now, when you look at these 6 pairs of letters, you can see something tremendous. It says like this, that Aleph stands for the first day of Passover, Bet for the second day, Gimel for the third, Dalet for the fourth, and so on, up to the 6th day. And then the letters from the end of the alphabet designate another special time of the year. And what you see is that on whatever day of the week the first day of Passover was, that will be the same day of the week on which the Tav, the last letter, will happen. What's the Tav stand for? It stands for Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, the day on which the temples were destroyed. So this year, the first day of Passover was a Tuesday. It also means that this year, Tisha B'Av will be on a Tuesday. The second day of Passover was a Wednesday, and the Shin, which is the letter that corresponds to it, stands for Shavuot. So Shavuot this year will be on a Wednesday. And so on. And you can continue doing this. I hope I got this right. Yes, I got it right. Okay. So now, let me just make 100% sure that I got it right for this year, because I don't want to mislead you and somebody will do Shavuot on the wrong day. But yes, Shavuot is on a Wednesday. I don't know why I suddenly doubted that. But let's get back to it. So now he says something amazing. In all these pairs, so let's just say what these days are. The first day, like we said, it's Tisha B'Av. The second day of Passover corresponds to Shavuot. the third day to Rosh Hashanah, the fourth day to Simchat Torah, because the kuf is kriyah b'Torah, the reading in the Torah. That's Simchat Torah. Then the hey stands for Yom Kippur. Because the hey is a kuf. The kuf is like is a tzaddik. Tzaddik is the tzom. So the fifth day of Passover will be the weekday on which the next Yom Kippur will occur. The Rosh Hashanah is the next Rosh Hashanah, not the Rosh Hashanah that we already had. Same thing with Simchat Torah, to be the next one. But then we get to the Vav, and the corresponding letter is Pei, which stands for Purim. But in this case, the Purim it refers to is not the upcoming Purim, it's actually the Purim that we already had. Why is that? Why does Passover retroactively refer to the previous Purim? So the explanation here, and this is not explained, as far as I remember, in the Kedushat Levi and by Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev. This is an explanation from Rabbi Ginsburg. He writes like this: the miracles of Passover, the 10 plagues, the parting of the Red Sea, were overt miracles that annulled nature. The miracles of Purim were concealed within the natural course of events. Purim seems to be like a political memoir. It's a story about what happened in the kingdom of Persia. It's not something that tells us about miracles, although in retrospect, we may say that there were tremendous miracles here. So the idea is like this: as long as the world seems to go about its business as usual routine, nature conceals the fact that everything is by divine providence, and that everything that is and happens is actually a miracle veiled by the mask of nature. But when God disrupts nature with overt miracles, like he did in Passover, and his providence becomes evident to all, we retroactively realize that even those events we thought were natural were miraculous. The past is revealed to be no less than the handiwork of God than the present. So this fits perfectly, because the Purim that we had, we thought was natural. But now, after we've experienced the miracles of Passover, the parting of the Red Sea, the 10 plagues, all that happened there, we come to realize that even what happened in Purim was something miraculous, but concealed and veiled by the mask of nature. And that's the idea behind this last pair, Vav and Pei. And because we're out of time, we're going to end with this today. There's a little bit more if you look at the Patreon site, and I hope to see you tomorrow. All the best.